Good morning. Welcome to your 7th week of online learning with Mr. Bagby and Mrs. Fleming. We are going to check right into the daily work assignment. And if you remember from last week, you know that you were finishing up Unit 2. So we are now in Unit 3, Monday, October 5th, 2020, day number 30, the big 3-0. I shrunk down the color coordinated key and put it in a nice little tidy box right there. And we'll have the video link ready for you. That's what you're looking at right now. The Declaration of Independence, in translation, what it really means is our new book. And we're going to get right into that as soon as we go through the daily Word doc. We'll be reading pages 4 through 9. And then what did you learn about the Declaration of Independence? The pages are down here for you to review, the ones that I'm going to read with you. The book report, remember, is due today, and there will be a part of the module will have the book report place where you could submit your work. So look for that today, and you can submit your book report into Canvas. We're focusing on informational reading and informational writing, and specifically expository writing. That's a fancy word. It means to explain, EXP, explains. Hear that root word? And when you exposit something, you're exposing it also for what it is and how to do it or how it works. This means writing that explains something, how something works, or how to do something. It often includes directions and labeled drawings. We will be looking at lots of examples in the next 3 weeks. But be thinking now, and notice this is in red, so this isn't due. Just be thinking now, and I have not set a due date for this project, but I just want you to start thinking about a topic and then choose what type of expository writing it needs from the following list. In other words, think of something that you're already an expert at, something that you know all about or know how to do, and then you can choose to explain it, explain something. For example, explaining the habitat of a rabbit, explain how something works, like the gears of a bicycle, explain how to do something, how to program games in Roblox. I bet many of you can do that. Explain how to make something, how to bake brownies, or instructions with labeled drawings, the manuals inside unassembled toys. And I know growing up at Christmas time, my dad and mom would be up late Christmas Eve looking at the manuals of the unassembled toys and trying to get them assembled. Watch the following video about informational writing. You're going to write a sentence for the words details and develop in 1 or 2 sentences. If you can fit them all, if you can fit both of the words into one sentence and it's effective and it shows the meaning, you can do that too. But you can't just say details and develop are words on our spelling list. That's a sentence, but it doesn't show the meaning. Remember to look up the dictionary.com definition and please practice your words. There are 14 punctuation marks that are commonly used in English grammar. The ones in pink highlight we've touched on already: period, question mark, exclamation point, comma, semicolon, colon, and you have a bunch of rest. And today and tomorrow, and probably Wednesday too, we'll be focusing on apostrophes. And there's a great fun video from Grammaropolis. And then there's a really, really wonderful explanation about how apostrophe works from a TED Talk. Then you have a practice site to practice plural and singular possessives using apostrophes. Brand new editing topic. Again, you'll learn something from these. It's the Everglades right here in Florida and how the Everglades is important and what they are. And then you have to correct all the mistakes. In social studies, as well as our reading, we're overlapping it because it's an effective way to learn when you cover reading and social studies and vice versa. Major topics for the next 3 weeks: the United States government, the Declaration of Independence, the preamble, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and our election process. And we're starting with the Declaration of Independence, which announced to the world the creation of a new country. We basically stood up and said, hey, we're a new country. Here we are. But we had to earn the right to do that first by defeating the English in what was called the Revolutionary War. But we made the declaration before we beat them, before we won the war. July 4th, 1776, and you get a PDF with the original Declaration of Independence. And because it was written in 1776, writing from 1776 in English is sometimes difficult to understand because their sentence structures and the words that they chose were often different than what we use today. We'll discover that with the preamble because it's a lot of words, but it's one long sentence. They loved writing very long sentences. But I put a simplified version of it too. It's not as beautifully written, but it helps you to understand it a lot better. The most famous original line, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The simplified version, even though I think that's pretty easy to understand, it is obvious that all people have the right to equal treatment and that God gives people rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that can be neither taken nor given away. What do you think that famous line means? So again, we'll be reading about the Declaration of Independence, and I want you to think about what that famous line means. Oh boy, I really want some of you to choose a world geography game and show us what you know. Maybe have a contest in the last 3 weeks, a little geography contest using geography games. Gifted block topic. Now, this is different. I told you different things for the last 3 weeks. You're going to go to Clever, then Renzulli. If you were here last year at Ridgecrest, or even in the district, you may have already have a profile in Renzulli. If you do, that's fine. You can update it. But if you don't, you need to do a profile in there. And the directions are there on the site that tells Renzulli and me what your interests are. And then you're going to be small grouped together based upon your profiles. So I'm grouping you according to your profiles and what you like and enjoy. You may use the small group link whenever you want to meet with your group for this research project. And don't ask what your research project is yet, because you don't know. And neither do I, because you first have to get the Renzulli done. So I've decided to go back and add the gifted block puzzles and riddles. Can you name 3 consecutive days without using the words Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday? Yes. Riddles, remember, are like trick questions. What 8-letter word can have a letter taken away and it still makes a word? Take another letter away and it still makes a word. Keep on doing that until you have 1 letter left and it's still a word. What word can you do that with? That's a difficult one. And how many seconds are there in 1 year? That is a trick. That's definitely a trick question. So the fun fact of the day is all about John Adams, our second president. He was a stickler for dates, so he refused to celebrate the 4th of July because in his mind, the vote happened on July 2nd, and that should have been the date. So he held out to the end. And the ironic thing, the writer of the Declaration of Independence and John Adams both died on the same day on July 4th, 1826, exactly 50 years after the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. So a humorous, ironic fun fact there. And again, this is the book that we're reading from. So let's stop the share and then we'll get right into that book on our Kindle Cloud Reader. The Declaration of Independence in translation, what it really means. The Declaration of Independence, a historic day in Philadelphia. July 4, 1776 started out like an ordinary day in Philadelphia. Yet something remarkable was happening inside the State House. The Second Continental Congress was making one of the most important decisions in American history. 2 days earlier, Congress had voted for independence. Now the delegates were taking another look at Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. The men agreed that it explained exactly why the colonies needed to break free from Great Britain and its ruler, King George III. The Congress asked local printer John Dunlap to print about 200 copies of the Declaration. Congress sent copies to all the colonies and to the Continental Army's commanding officers because the war had already started, the War for Independence. Dunlap printed the Declaration in his newspaper, the Pennsylvania Evening Post, on July 6, 1776. On July 8, the document was read aloud in Philadelphia's town square. People just gathered around to listen. And on July 9th, George Washington read it to his troops. After the Declaration of Independence was read, many patriots cheered with excitement. In some places, the colonists even celebrated with fireworks. So fireworks right from the beginning. As you know, July 4th, lots of fireworks. But the men who signed the Declaration had little time to celebrate. They had spoken against Great Britain. With their pens, they risked their lives for freedom. And you better believe they did risk their lives. They really did. Because if they had lost the War for Independence, all of them would have been for going against their sovereign king. Because the king owned the colonies. And the colonies said, nobody owns us. We're free. But they had to prove it by winning. The document that changed the world, the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth a separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impelled them to the separation. So that's the beginning of the Declaration. The 13 colonies in America have agreed as one to break ties with Great Britain. Both nature and God have given people this right. Now the people will tell the world why. And again, Great Britain ruled the 13 colonies before the Declaration of Independence. Congress wanted other countries to support their cause. Later, France helped the United States fight for independence. So there's lots of countries in the world that we were connected with, both south of us, South America, Europe, parts of the Middle East, Asia, and we needed to explain to them why we were doing this, because it was not normal to break away from your king or queen. In fact, it was very not normal. Maybe the first time in history anything like it had ever happened. Thomas Jefferson, the main author of the Declaration of Independence, loved words. He especially loved big words. We don't have room to define them all, but if you're curious, grab your dictionary. And again, I provided you the simplified version of the Declaration. The Declaration of Independence continued. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, here's a part of this that is a little uncomfortable. The Declaration of Independence says that everybody is created equal. But in 1776, equality applied only to some people. At that time, millions of Africans in the 13 colonies were slaves. Women could not vote or own property. American Indians were forced off their native lands. It wasn't a perfect world in 1776, but with the Declaration, Congress set into motion a form of government that in time would include all people. The nation still isn't perfect, but it's a lot better than it was back then. Unalienable means can't be taken away. Some rights should be clear to everyone. For one thing, all men are created equal. Today, that would say people. People were written today. God gave people certain rights that nobody can take away. These rights include the right to life and a right to freedom, and people should be free to find happiness. The government doesn't guarantee happiness, but the Declaration says you deserve every opportunity to pursue what makes your life happy, what makes you feel like you've succeeded in your personal life. Happiness meant a little bit something different back then too. Today we think of happy, like smiles and running around. I'm so happy. Back then, happiness was more happenings. I did happenings in my life with my group. That was part of the happiness, was a collective feeling of succeeding together, not necessarily just an emotion. Most people don't really realize that today. It wasn't just talking about the emotion of happiness. It was more of finding your purpose in life so that the happenings of your life matched what you were pursuing. The Declaration doesn't say that we have a right to be happy. It says we have the right to try to be happy. Happiness is a goal, not a promise. So that ends our first part of our new unit about exploring what makes America, what makes the USA, the United States of America, what it is. And the only way to know that and to experience that is by reading about it. In fact, it's very difficult to learn anything about history without reading about it. And primary source documents are very important. That's why we're looking at them. All right, we're going to end this video now, and I will see you soon.